Welcome back. Today's video is an overview of silent skills applied to sleep to set the stage for the practices that will follow. And I encourage you to use these practices, but not without understanding their purpose. And so that's what this video is meant to overview. And sleep is a foundational place for the application of silence skills. And it's never been needed more because we truly are a culture that struggles with sleep. And I work in a psychiatric practice and I respect the use of certain medications as tools, and they are useful, but they're not long-term solutions. They lose effectiveness over time and they have some pretty gnarly side effects. So silent skills offer an alternative. They present a skill building or a deepened and more eased relationship with finding sleep. And this video actually means a lot to me, or these practices mean a lot to me, because I used to really struggle with sleep. For my later childhood into my teen years, I really struggled to sleep. And if anyone's had that experience, it's really troubling because it creates this cycle where all of a sudden, if you've had some nights where you struggle to sleep, leading up to sleep becomes very stressful. And of course, you just see why that would perpetuate the cycle of distress. And it was so bad throughout my youth that I would use up birthday wishes to wish I could sleep better, because it was so elusive and so frustrating to me that I was willing to give up those very valuable birthday wishes to hope that I could sleep better. And I'm happy to report that I sleep great now without the use of any substances, without the use of any real supports. I can just, as the young kids say, raw dog sleep. I can naturally access sleep consistently. And my overall relationship with rest has greatly improved. And of course, being able to rest effectively lets your actions, lets your daily life be more effective because you're not groggy, you're not constantly fatigued. And so let's talk about what that takes. I mean, overall, what does it mean to become more skillful at sleep? Well, it's a type of skill that's non-effortful, but there is some preliminary effort. And what I mean by that is the actual sleep routine. There is utility in becoming more regular with your sleep routine, but regular in a simple and consistent way. Something that's too elaborate risks becoming stressful in its rigidity. Meaning if you have something very elaborate that you have to do before bed and then one step can't be met one day, or you're at a hotel, or something is compromised, that in itself will create more distress that prevents the sleep. So when it comes to sleep routine, it should be relatively simple and repetitive. And then humility also applies to setting the stage for sleep. And there's a concept called revenge bedtime that a lot of Americans fall into because we feel so at a loss of our time during the day. We feel like, oh, our time's not ours, so we're gonna reclaim it at night. And those hours between, 10:30 and 2 a.m., it's ours to make use of. And in this way, we're compromising time. The next day, we're compromising engagement and presence by kind of being greedy over our timeline. And so the approach of humility says, release that control, release that rigidity and that greediness over time to enhance your experience of time in a more sustainable way. So that's the kind of preliminary setting the stage for sleep. But then there's that actual falling asleep itself. And you can have the world's best sleep routine and still really struggle to fall asleep. And silent skills orient us to the non-effortful, skillful approach to sleep. And what I mean by that is non-effortful in the intellectual, analytical way. At a basic neuroscientific level, our capacity to sleep is based on these kind of subcortical areas of the brain. It requires that our parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, is active. So when we approach through effort, again, that kind of analytical effort, we're engaging the parts of our brain that are thinking, that are problem solving. Our prefrontal cortex is the name for it. And that prevents us from accessing the part of our brain that's responsible for pulling us into sleep. And there's actually a relatively new term called orthosomnia that refers to the over analysis and critique, really, and over awareness of sleep data from sleep apps that perpetuates sleep disorder. So again, what is the next step? How do we skillfully approach sleep if it's not about trying harder and it's not about analyzing more and thinking yourself there? Well, we set the conditions. We set the conditions first by realizing that relaxation is something we can train ourselves in. It's not something that you are either good or bad at. It's something that you can get better at. So a lot of the sleep practices will have a deliberate, embodied relaxation practice. And at first you will be bad at it. If you're not used to it, you will do it and then your body, your nervous system will clench up. And then you'll practice it again and then you'll clench back up. And that's okay. Over time, the resting part, the relaxation part, the easing part, the exhale becomes more sustained. And then we also start to orient to a shifted intention. Meaning the intention is not to get to sleep. That's too effortful. We can't. In fact, we actually can't make ourselves sleep unless we take a tranquilizer. And again, that's what we're saying. There's an alternate approach. But you can access a pre-sleep stage, a state of open awareness and non-activity or non-grasping onto mental activity. A way to conceptualize this is that the pre-sleep state that we're trying to access is like the water of a pond, and the thoughts are like the fish. So instead of trying to orient the fish in a specific way and make them go in a certain direction, we start to settle back into that pond, back into that open, soft awareness around the thoughts. And that, paired with relaxation, inevitably invites sleep. And then finally, within all that, within that practice of relaxation and a kind of softening into wide awareness, we also take with us a wiser recognition that rest itself is nourishing. Meaning some nights we don't fall asleep immediately. And some nights we are compromised in how much actual sleep we get. But the silence skills, the kind of framework that it offers, is to recognize that lying in stillness is nourishing on its own. Even if we don't immediately or even gradually reach that sleep state, by resting in stillness, our body is becoming nourished. And there truly are individuals who are so adept at meditation, the practice of ease, that's still awake and aware, that they don't sleep, or they sleep very, very little, because they've learned to provide themselves that rest in a attuned state. But that doesn't have to be you. That's certainly not me. How it applies to me is that on the nights, which now are fewer than ever, but on the nights where sleep doesn't come immediately, I don't stress about it. I don't count the hours until I have to wake up. I don't think about how I'm going to be compromised the next day and beat myself up. I just remind myself, okay, you're laying here in this comfy bed, in stillness, in quiet, and that is nourishing. And so the silence skills allow us to actually approach the failure to sleep still as something that's nourishing. And that helps create a new cycle. Instead of the cycle where we can't sleep, and so we fear going to sleep, and so we're super active and trying to figure out how to sleep better, we enter a new cycle where relaxation is waiting for us, and we settle in there. And even on the nights that we're not immediately sleeping, we feel nourished. So I invite you to, with those intentions in mind, check out the videos, check out these formal practices, knowing that they're meant to support your ability to access those states of relaxation and soft awareness over time. And my hope is that over time you won't need them, but feel free to turn them on as you are practicing settling into sleep.